The alarm bells rang through the great hall of the Galactic Council. Ambassador HFY ran down the long corridor, his blue skin pale with fear. His forearms shook as he held the datapad that contained the worst news in 1,000 years. Doors to the council chamber opened with a soft hiss. Inside, representatives from 47 different worlds sat in their floating chairs. Each alien species looked different from the others. Some had fur, others had scales, some breathed oxygen, others needed special gas masks. But today, they all shared the same expression of terror. HFY walked to the center of the round room. His voice cracked as he began to speak. Council members, I bring news from the Outer Rim territories. Vorthok Empire has destroyed another. 3 worlds in the past week. The colonies of New Haven, Peaceful Rest, and Golden Fields are gone. A gasp went through the chamber. Council Leader Morthon, a tall being with gray skin and large black eyes, leaned forward in his chair. Gone? What do you mean gone, Ambassador? HFY's hands trembled as he activated his datapad. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed 3 planets, each one a burnt shell of rock and metal. The Vorthok ships arrived 5 days ago. They ignored all attempts to communicate. They ignored surrender offers. They simply began their harvest protocol. A hologram changed to show massive ships shaped like metal insects. Each ship was the size of a small moon. They moved slowly around the dead planets, long tubes extending down to the surface. In 72 hours, they stripped each world clean. Every building, every tree, every living being was taken aboard their harvest ships. The planets that once held billions of lives are now empty rocks. Councilmember Yelenox from the Peaceful Traders Guild stood up. Her green skin had turned almost white. How many harvest ships did they send? 12 ships destroyed 3 entire worlds, HFY said quietly. Our intelligence reports say they have over 300 such ships. The council chamber fell. Silent, the math was simple and terrifying. 12 ships could destroy 3 worlds in 3 days. Then 300 ships could destroy every world in the Confederation in less than a month. Morthon spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. How many people lived on those 3 worlds? 14 billion souls, HFY replied. All gone, turned into biological material for their empire. An elderly council member from the Crystal Gardens spoke up. His name was Veltar, and he had served on the council for over 200 years. What do our military advisors say? Can our defense fleet stop them? HFY shook his head sadly. Admiral Kethrin tried to engage them with the 5th Defense Fleet at New Haven. 60 ships, our best weapons, our finest crews, and the Vorthok ships adapted to our energy weapons within minutes. Our plasma cannons became useless. Our particle beams were absorbed and turned back on us. Admiral Kethron sent a final message before his ship was destroyed. Said our weapons were like throwing pebbles at a mountain. The hologram changed again, showing the twisted remains of Confederation ships floating in space. The beautiful white holes were now bent and broken, their crews gone forever. Councilmember Hyrynus from the Garden Worlds began to weep softly. Her species had never known war. They had spent 10,000 years growing the most beautiful flowers in the galaxy. Now they faced complete destruction. What about diplomacy? Asked another member. Have we tried to negotiate? His face grew even more grim. We sent Ambassador Tellman to speak with them under a flag of peace. They had sent back a recording. Show us, Morthon commanded. The hologram changed to show a Vorthok leader. The being was made of living crystal, with sharp edges and glowing red eyes. It spoke in a voice like breaking glass, a soft-flesh species. Your existence serves only one purpose. You will become resources for the Vorthok Empire. Resistance brings pain. Surrender brings quick processing. Choose. The recording ended. The council sat in stunned silence. Veltar was the first to speak. They don't want our worlds. They don't want our technology. They want us. They want to turn us into materials for their empire. The intelligence reports confirm it, HFY said. They break down biological matter and reshape it into their biomechanical technology. Every person they capture becomes part of their war machine. Young council member Nira Sol from the Star Dancers colony raised her hand. What about calling for help from the other galactic powers? The Stellar Empire? The Free Traders?
Alrighty.
Contacted HFY replied. The Stellar Empire is too far away. Their ships would take years to reach us. The Free Traders have gone into hiding. They think the Vorthok will ignore them if they stay quiet. Then we fight alone, Morthon said, but his voice held no confidence. With what? Asked Veltar. Our combined military might couldn't scratch their hulls. They adapt to every weapon. We have. They learn from every attack. Each battle makes them stronger. The council fell into despair. Some members wept openly. Others stared at the dead planets on the hologram, knowing their own worlds would soon look the same. Then Harona spoke in a small voice. What about the quarantined species? The chamber grew quiet. Every being knew what she meant, but no one wanted to say it out loud. You mean the Deathworlders? Veltar said slowly. The humans from Sol 3? Hyrunus nodded. Their planet is classified as a Class 12 death world. The reports say they actually live there by choice. Morthon shook his head. Those beings are too dangerous. Their world breeds violence. Every creature on their planet is designed to kill. Even their weather tries to destroy them. But they survive it, Nira Sol pointed out. They don't just survive. They build cities and travel in space. They turned a death world into their home. HFY looked thoughtful. The first contact reports did say they were effective warriors. Effective, Veltar laughed bitterly. They call themselves predators. They hunt for sport. They fight wars for practice. Their entire species is built around surviving things that would kill any civilized being. Maybe that's what we need, Harona said quietly. Maybe civilized isn't enough anymore. The council debated for hours. The humans had been quarantined since first contact 50 years ago. The diplomatic team that made contact had come back, with stories that seemed impossible. Species that lived on a world covered in poison seas, burning deserts, frozen wastelands, and active volcanoes, whether that could level cities. Creatures that could tear apart metal with their claws. And the humans not only survived all of this, they thrived in it. But every report also mentioned their capacity for violence. They had weapons that could crack planets. They had fought wars that killed millions of their own kind. They saw violence as a solution to problems. They might save us, Morthon said finally. But what would be left of us afterward? The debate continued. More reports came in. 2 more worlds had gone silent. The Vorthok fleet was moving toward the core systems. Soon they would reach the capital worlds where trillions lived in peace. Finally, HFY stood up. I will send the message myself. We are facing extinction. If the humans destroy us, at least it will be quick. If the Vorthok get us, we become part of their war machine forever. The vote was close, but fear won over caution. The message would be sent to the quarantine system called Sol. As HFY walked to the communication center, he wondered if they were asking for salvation or simply choosing how they wanted to die. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UCS Defiance, reading the alien message for the 4th time. The words were simple, but their meaning was huge. For the first time in 50 years, someone from outside the solar system was asking Earth for help. Captain, incoming transmission from Fleet Command, called Lieutenant Peters from the communications station. Put it through, Jake said, still holding the alien message. Admiral Carter's face appeared on the main screen. Her gray hair was pulled back tight, and her steel blue eyes looked tired but determined. Jake, I assume you've read the alien transmission? Yes, ma'am. Sounds like they have a big problem out there. Bigger than they know, Admiral Carter replied. We've been monitoring their communications for months. This Vorthok Empire isn't just conquering worlds, they're harvesting entire populations. Jake felt his jaw tighten. He had seen plenty of war in his 20-year career, but the idea of turning living beings into raw materials made his stomach turn. What are your orders, Admiral? We're mobilizing the 1st Expeditionary Fleet. You'll take point with the Defiance. Colonel Blake's Marines are already loading their gear. Dr. Price is preparing her xenobiology team. We leave in 6 hours. Jake nodded. How big is this fleet we're facing? Intelligence suggests over 300 capital ships, each the size of a small city, use biomechanical technology that adapts to conventional weapons. The aliens have lost every engagement so far in our fleet. For ships, the Defiance, Retribution, Vengeance, and Reckoning. About 1,200 personnel. Total. Jake almost smiled. Those were terrible odds for any normal military. But humans had never been accused of being normal. Understood, Admiral. We'll handle it. After the transmission ended, Jake called his senior staff to the briefing room. The Defiance was not the biggest ship in Earth's fleet, but it was built for one purpose: winning wars that couldn't be won by anyone else. Commander Lisa Grant arrived first. She was young for a tactical officer, only 32, but she had earned her position by thinking like the enemy better than the enemy thought like themselves. Her short black hair was already damp with sweat from reviewing battle plans. "Been going over the alien intelligence reports," Lisa said as she sat down. "These Vorthok ships are impressive. Their hulls adapt to energy weapons. Their coordination is perfect. They learn from every attack." "But," Jake asked, knowing there was always a but when Lisa analyzed an enemy. "But they're fighting like prey animals. Every engagement follows the same pattern. Long-range energy exchanges, orderly retreats when outgunned. They're fighting a civilized war." Colonel Ryan Blake entered the room, his heavy boots making no sound on the metal floor. At 45, he was old for a Marine commander, but his soldiers would follow him into hell itself. His weathered face showed no emotion as he reviewed the mission files. "My boys are excited," Ryan said simply. "It's been too long since we had a real fight." Dr. Amanda Price came in last, carrying 3 data pads and looking worried. "Where is the ships?" Head of xenobiology, she understood alien species better than anyone else on board. Her red hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and her green eyes showed concern. "Captain, I've been studying the Vorthok biotechnology. It's unlike anything we've seen before. They literally incorporate conquered species into their war machines. It's not just slavery, it's forced evolution. Can we fight it?" Jake asked. "That's not what worries me," Amanda replied. "What worries me is that we're going to fight it too well." The aliens asked for help. They didn't ask for total war. Jake looked at his team. These 3 people represented the best of human military thinking. Lisa could find the weakness in any defense. Ryan could take that weakness and exploit it with brutal efficiency. Amanda could understand any enemy well enough to predict their moves. Together, they had fought in the Martian Rebellion, the Jupiter mining wars, and the asteroid belt conflicts. They had won every battle they had ever fought, sometimes against impossible odds. "What do we know about Vorthok tactics?" Jake asked. Lisa activated the holographic display. Images of crystalline ships appeared in the air above the table. Ship looked like a living thing made of metal and crystal. They use swarm tactics. Multiple ships coordinate their attacks through some kind of hive mind connection. When one ship learns how to counter a weapon, they all learn instantly. Weaknesses. They adapt to new threats slowly. It takes them several minutes to adjust. 2 completely new types of attacks. They also seem to have trouble with multiple simultaneous threats from different directions. Ryan leaned forward. "What about boarding actions?" "No data. Apparently none of the alien species have ever tried to board a Vorthok ship." Ryan grinned. It was not a pleasant expression, and they're in for a surprise. Amanda pulled up biological scans of the Vorthok themselves. The beings were tall and thin, made of living crystal with sharp edges and glowing energy cores. They're silicon-based life forms, very different from carbon-based species like us. They're strong, but they're also brittle, evolved on a world with low gravity and thin atmosphere. "How do they handle pressure changes?" Jake asked. "Unknown. Based on their physiology, I'd guess poorly." Jake nodded. A plan was already forming in his mind. It was a simple plan, because the best plans usually were. The aliens had been fighting a civilized war against an uncivilized enemy. Humans would fight an uncivilized war against a civilized enemy. "Lisa, I want you to prepare targeting solutions for kinetic weapons. Old-fashioned tungsten rods, accelerated to maximum velocity." "Sir, kinetic weapons are considered primitive by galactic standards." "Good. They won't expect them." "Ryan, prepare your Marines for boarding actions in hostile environments. Assume vacuum, extreme temperatures, and toxic atmospheres. Copy that, Captain, Amanda. I want complete biological profiles on every Vorthok subspecies. Find their weaknesses, their fears, their pressure points. Already on it, sir. As his staff left to prepare, Jake remained in the briefing room alone. He looked out the small window at Earth below. His home world was beautiful, but it was also deadly. Every day on Earth was a struggle against nature itself. Hurricanes that could level cities, earthquakes that could crack continents, volcanoes that could darken the sky for years, diseases that could kill millions. And humans had not just survived all of this, they had conquered it. They built cities in earthquake zones and reinforced them to survive. They sailed ships through storms that would terrify most species. They lived on every continent, from frozen Antarctica to burning deserts. They had turned Earth's hostility into their greatest strength. Now they would take that strength to the stars. 6 hours later, the first expeditionary fleet left Earth's orbit, for ships carrying humanity's answer to the alien plea for help. As they jumped to hyperspace, Jake sent a simple message back to the Galactic Council. We received your call for help. We are coming. Tell your people to stay clear of combat zones. We fight differently than you do. What the aliens didn't understand yet was that humans had been preparing for this war their entire lives. Every generation had faced extinction and survived. Every challenge had made them stronger. The Vorthok Empire was about to learn why Earth was classified as a death world, and why the species that called it its home had been quarantined from the rest of the galaxy. They were about to meet Deathworlders who had come to solve their problem permanently. The Defiance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display with calm eyes. What he saw would have terrified any alien commander, but Jake just nodded slowly. Report. Commander Grant, he said quietly. Lisa Grant studied her instruments, her fingers dancing across the control panels. 12 Vorthok harvest ships in the inner system. They're stripping the third planet bare. I'm reading massive energy signatures from their biomechanical systems. Any survivors? 17 evacuation ships are trapped near the fourth planet. The Vorthok have them surrounded. Looks like they're saving them for last. Jake looked at the display. The Vorthok ships were enormous, each one the size of a small moon. Long metal tentacles reached down from their holes to the planet's surface, sucking up everything they touched.
Ow.
Buildings, trees, people, everything disappeared into their hungry maws. Admiral Carter is requesting battle plans, Lisa reported. Jake smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Tell the Admiral we're implementing the Soul Maneuver. All ships are to follow our lead. Dr. Amanda Price looked up from her science station. Captain, the Soul Maneuver has never been tested in actual combat. Radiation levels near the star could kill us, Jake finished. But it won't. We're from Earth, Doctor. We'll handle radiation better than most species handle a mild breeze. The 4 human ships moved away from their entry point and headed straight toward the system's star. It was not the move any sane military commander would make. Stars were things to avoid in space combat, not to approach. But humans had lived their entire existence next to a star that regularly tried to kill them with radiation, solar flares, and magnetic storms. What seemed suicidal to other species was just another day at the office for Earth's children. Vorthok ships are reacting, Lisa reported. They're moving to intercept, but they're confused by our approach vector. Our formation is breaking. Up. Perfect. Range to target? 40,000 kilometers and closing. We'll be in their weapons range in 3 minutes. And they'll be in hours in 2. Load kinetic rounds. Target their harvest appendages first. Colonel Ryan Blake's voice came over the communications system from the marine deck. My boys are ready for boarding actions, Captain. Just get us close enough. Jake watched as the Vorthok ships turned to face them. The crystalline vessels were beautiful in a deadly way, their biomechanical hulls shifting and adapting as they prepared for battle. Red energy began to glow from weapon ports along their sides. They're charging their plasma cannons, Lisa warned. Energy levels are off the charts. Let them charge. Amanda, are you recording everything? Dr. Price nodded, her instruments scanning the approaching enemy ships. Full biological and technological analysis in progress. These readings are incredible, Captain. Their ships are actually alive. The hull, the weapons, the propulsion systems, everything is grown rather than built. It's going to make them predictable, Jake said. Living things follow patterns. They adapt, but they can't change their basic nature. The first Vorthok plasma blasts lit up space between the two fleets. Bright red energy beams lanced out from the alien ships seeking the approaching human vessels. But the human ships weren't where the Vorthok expected them to be. Evasive Pattern 7, Jake ordered calmly. The Defiance twisted through space. Like a dancer, her hull groaning under the stress, but holding together. Around her, the other human ships performed the same deadly ballet. Energy beams that should have vaporized them passed harmlessly through empty space. How are they missing? Lisa wondered aloud. Their targeting systems should be perfect. They are perfect, Jake replied. For fighting other civilized species. But we're not civilized. We're from a world that taught us to move like prey animals when we need to survive. The human ships closed the distance rapidly. At 10,000 kilometers, Jake gave the order that changed everything. Fire kinetic rounds, full spread. The Defiance shuddered as dozens of tungsten rods launched from her hull. Each rod was simple. Technology, just a piece of dense metal accelerated to incredible speed. No energy signature for the Vorthok to adapt to. No complex systems to counter. Just mass and velocity, the most basic physics of destruction. The rod struck the nearest. Vorthok ship like the fist of an angry god. The biomechanical hull, designed to absorb and adapt to energy weapons, had no defense against simple kinetic impact. Holes appeared in the alien ship's side, atmosphere and biological fluids venting into space. Direct hits, Lisa reported with satisfaction. Their harvest appendages are severed. That ship is out of the harvesting business, but Jake wasn't finished. Take us into the star's gravity well. Use the stellar wind to mask our approach. Sir, that's insane, the helmsman protested. The radiation will cook us. No, it won't. We're human. We can handle it. The Defiance dove toward the system star, her heat shields glowing as they absorbed radiation that would have killed any other crew in minutes. Behind her, the other human ships followed, their hulls designed for the hellish environment near Sol. The Vorthok ships tried to follow, but their biomechanical systems began to fail in the intense radiation. Their living hulls started to burn and blister. Their coordination broke down as the stellar interference disrupted their hive-mind connection. Now, Jake said quietly. Oh. Ship's attack pattern Omega. The 4 human ships burst out of the stellar wind like avenging angels, their weapons blazing. More kinetic rounds hammered into the confused Vorthok fleet. Ships that had seemed invincible minutes before began to come apart under the relentless bombardment. Colonel Blake, you're cleared for boarding actions. Finally, Ryan's voice came back. Launching assault pods now. Small craft launched from the human ships, each one carrying a squad of Marines in full environmental suits. The pods moved like bullets through space, their occupants ready for the most dangerous kind of combat. The first pod smashed through the hull of a damaged Vorthok ship. Colonel Blake and his squad poured out into the alien vessel's corridors, their weapons ready. What they found there would have stopped any civilized species in their tracks. The interior of the ship was a nightmare of biological technology. Walls that pulsed like living flesh. Corridors that moved and shifted like arteries. Everywhere the remains of harvested species, partially processed into the ship's biomechanical systems. This is Blake. Ryan's voice crackled over the radio. The intel was right. Things are using people as spare parts. I can see Federation civilians wired into their computer systems. Jake's face went cold. The Vorthok weren't just conquering worlds. They were turning living beings into components for their war machine. It was worse than slavery. Complete destruction of what made a person human, or alien, or anything other than raw material. Colonel, your orders are to disable their ships and rescue any survivors you can find." "Copy that, Captain. But these civilians, what they've done to them. Some of them might be beyond saving." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. This was the choice that civilized species couldn't make. Sometimes saving people meant ending their suffering permanently. "Do what you think is right, Colonel. We'll stand behind your decisions." "Understood, sir." The battle raged for 2 hours. When it ended, 12 Vorthok harvest ships drifted dead in space. The human fleet had taken minor damage. It's mostly from radiation exposure that their systems were designed to handle. The evacuation. Ships were safe. The planet below was scarred but empty, its population either dead or rescued from the Vorthok ships. Dr. Price finished her analysis and looked up at Jake with troubled eyes. "Captain, we need to talk about what we found in those ships." "Later, Doctor. Right now, we have 17 more Vorthok fleets to deal with, sir. What I found changes everything. The Vorthok aren't just using biotechnology, they are biotechnology. Every ship, every weapon, every piece of equipment is made from the processed remains of conquered species." Jake looked at the dead alien ships on his display. "And we'll make sure they don't conquer anyone else." As the human fleet prepared to jump to the next battle, Jake sent a message to the Federation forces. "Kepler 442 system is secure. Enemy. Fleet destroyed. Survivors rescued. Moving to next target. Recommend all civilian populations evacuate to core worlds immediately. This war will be over soon." What Jake didn't say in his message was that the war would be over because the Vorthok Empire was about to learn what happened when you threatened the friends of Earth's children. They were about to discover that asking Deathworlders for help meant accepting their methods completely, and human methods left no room for mercy toward those who turned people into spare parts. 6 months had passed since the humans answered the Federation's call for help. Ambassador HFY sat in the Great Council chamber, staring at the reports spread across his desk. Should have been happy. The Vorthok Empire was gone. Every world was safe. The nightmare was over. So why did he feel like a new nightmare was just beginning? The door to his office opened and Admiral Carter walked in. The human woman looked tired but satisfied. Her uniform was clean and pressed, but HFY could see the weight of command in her eyes. "Ambassador," she said with a slight nod. "You wanted to see me? Please, sit down, Admiral." "I have some questions about your final report." Admiral Carter sat across from him, her hands folded calmly in her lap. She waited for him to speak, showing the patience that humans seem to have in unlimited supply when they weren't fighting. "Your report says the Vorthok Empire has been completely eliminated. What exactly does that mean?" "It means they no longer exist as a threat to any civilized world," Admiral Carter replied simply. "But what happened to their homeworlds? Their civilians? Their non-military population?" Admiral Carter's expression didn't change. "There were no civilians, Ambassador. Our xenobiologist Dr. Price confirmed it during the campaign. The Vorthok were a completely militarized society. Every individual was part of their war machine." HFY felt a chill run through his body. "Every individual? Even their children? They didn't have children in the way you understand them. They reproduced by incorporating biological material from conquered species. Each new Vorthok was literally built from the processed remains of their victims." The ambassador looked down at his hands. They were shaking slightly. "So when you eliminated the Vorthok Empire... we eliminated every Vorthok in existence. It was the only way to ensure they could never threaten anyone again." The words hung in the air between them like a death sentence. HFY had lived for 300 years and had never heard of an entire species being wiped out so completely and efficiently. "How many worlds did you visit during your campaign?" he asked quietly. 47 Vorthok systems, 312 planets, 8 space stations. We were very thorough. How long did this take? 6 months? 2 weeks? 3 days? We could have finished sooner, but Dr. Price wanted to study their technology before we destroyed it. HFY stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the peaceful gardens of the Federation capital.
Oh.
Children from dozens of different species played together in the sunshine. They were safe now, but the price of their safety troubled him deeply. "Admiral, the Federation is grateful for your help." But we need to discuss what happens next. I'm listening. Your ships haven't returned. To Earth? Your military advisors are now stationed on every major world. Your scientists are studying our technology and our defenses. Some of our members are asking if we've simply traded one conqueror for another. Admiral Carter was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was calm, but firm. Ambassador, let me be very clear about something. We didn't come here to conquer anyone. We came here because you asked for help. We gave you that help in the only way we know how. It's by destroying an entire species, by removing a threat permanently. On Earth, we learned a long time ago that half measures in war lead to bigger wars later. It's when something threatens the people. We protect. We don't just defeat it. We eliminate it completely. HFY turned back to face her. And now you're protecting us? Yes, whether you want it or not. The simple honesty of her answer was somehow more frightening than any threat would have been. HFY sat back down, trying to understand what his people had gotten themselves into. What does that protection look like, Admiral? Captain Morrison is now commanding the Federation Defense Force. All military decisions go through him. Colonel, Blake is training your security forces in proper defensive tactics. Dr. Price is upgrading your planetary shields and weapon systems. And if we object to these arrangements, Admiral Carter smiled, but it wasn't a warm expression. Then you'll be defending yourselves against the next threat that comes along. And there's always a next threat, Ambassador. The galaxy is full of species that see weakness as opportunity. As if summoned by her words, the door opened and Captain Jake Morrison walked in. He nodded to both of them and sat down without being invited. His casual manner would have been considered rude by Federation standards, but HFY was learning that humans didn't worry much about diplomatic niceties. Sorry I'm late, Jake said. Had to deal with a situation in the Outer Rim. What kind of situation? HFY asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Pirates trying to raid some of the former Vorthok worlds. They thought the systems were undefended now. And they were wrong. We dealt with them. The way Jake said dealt with them made HFY's stomach turn. He was beginning to understand that humans had a very final way of solving problems. How many ships did they send? Admiral Carter asked. 57 vessels. Mixed fleet, probably? 3 different pirate clans working together. Survivors. None. We made sure to broadcast the engagement across all the pirate networks, should discourage copycat attempts. HFY stared at both humans. They were discussing the destruction of 57 ships and potentially thousands of lives as casually as they might discuss the weather. Captain Morrison, he said carefully, the Federation has laws about piracy. Trials, imprisonment, rehabilitation programs. Jake looked at him with genuine confusion. Ambassador, they were armed raiders. Attacking civilians. They weren't criminals to be rehabilitated, they were enemies to be stopped. But surely some of them could have been captured, questioned, reformed. ... Why would we want to reform them? They made their choice when they decided to prey on peaceful people. We made ours when we decided to protect those people. Dr. Amanda? Price entered the room, carrying a datapad and looking pleased with herself. She nodded to the ambassador and sat down next to Jake. Sorry to interrupt, but I have the monthly security report. No hostile contacts in any Federation system. All defensive systems are running at optimal efficiency. The new early warning networks are detecting potential threats 3 systems out. Any new threats? Admiral Carter asked. The Corvani Empire sent a scout fleet to probe our borders last week. When they detected our defensive positions, they withdrew immediately. I don't think they'll be back. HFY felt another chill. The Corvani Empire has been expanding for decades. They've conquered 12 systems in the past year alone. Not anymore, Amanda said simply. They got the message we sent to all the major powers after we finished with the Vorthok? What message? Jake answered. Simple communication. The Federation is under human protection. Any hostile action against Federation worlds will result in immediate and total retaliation. Complete destruction of the aggressors. Military capability and leadership structure, Admiral Carter clarified. We believe in clear communication. HFY looked around the room at the 3 humans. They seemed so normal, so reasonable. But in 6 months, they had eliminated an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for years. They had turned the Federation from a collection of peaceful worlds into the most feared military power in known space. "What happens to us now?" he asked. "Quietly. You continue living your lives," Jake said. "You grow your gardens, raise your children, trade with your neighbors, explore new worlds. The only difference is that no one will ever threaten you again. And if we want to make our own military decisions, you can make suggestions," Admiral Carter said. "But final authority rests with us. We've seen what happens when peaceful species try to handle military matters on their own. This isn't what we asked for," HFY said, his voice barely above a whisper. Amanda looked at him with something that might have been sympathy. "Yes, it is, Ambassador. You asked for help from Deathworlders? This is what help looks like when it comes from a species that measures success by the complete elimination of threats. You asked us to save your people," Jake added. "We did. Your children will grow up in the safest galaxy in known history." "But at what cost?" "The cost was paid by your enemies," Admiral Carter said firmly. "Not by you." As the 3 humans left his office, HFY sat alone with his thoughts. Outside his window, children still played in the gardens. They were safe, happier than they had ever been. The Federation was more prosperous and secure than at any time in its history, but it was no longer the same Federation that had sent that desperate message to Earth 6 months ago. It was something new, something protected by beings who solved problems by eliminating them completely. HFY picked up his communication device and began writing his report to the homeworlds. He had to explain to his people that they had gotten exactly what they asked for. They had asked for help from Deathworlders. Deathworlders had brought them safety through total destruction of all threats. Whether that made them safer or more dangerous, only time would tell. But one thing was certain: no one would ever threaten the Federation again. The humans had made sure of that.